When's the last time you watched someone less experienced than you get the promotion you knew you deserved? Be honest. Has it happened more than once? Maybe it was someone who joined the team after you. Maybe it was someone in a different department who somehow ended up leading the very project you built the foundation for. Maybe you sat in a meeting and heard someone else get credit for an idea you brought up months ago, and you just let it go. You did the work. You hit the numbers. You showed up early, stayed late, solved the problems nobody else wanted to touch, and somehow it still wasn't enough to get you noticed. One thing I've noticed in myself and in the clients I work with is that this isn't a one-time thing. It's a pattern, and patterns repeat until we name them. You probably told yourself something like, I just need to work harder, or they'll notice eventually. Did you tell yourself that again this week? Maybe even today? I invite you to think about the story you've been telling yourself about why this keeps happening. Maybe it's, I'm just not good at self-promotion. Maybe it's my manager's too busy to notice. Maybe it's, if I was really good enough, someone would have said something by now. Whatever that story is, hold on to it for a moment because we're going to come back to it. Here's what I've come to believe after years of doing this work. You're not being overlooked because your work isn't good enough. You're being overlooked because good work was never designed to speak for itself. And here's the part that might sting a little. Every time the moment comes to speak up for yourself, whether that's in a performance review, a team meeting, or a casual hallway conversation, something in you hits the brakes. You downplay it. You change the subject. You let someone else take the spotlight, even when you earned it. By the end of this episode, you're going to have language for a pattern you've probably felt for years, but never quite named. And you're going to understand exactly why it's been so hard to change, even when you've tried. I once built an entire program management office from scratch. The meetings, the reporting, all of it. Then new people were hired into that office with titles I didn't have, and some of them didn't even know how to use Excel. I waited for my manager to speak up for me. She didn't. And that's when I had to ask myself, was I waiting to be noticed? Or was I willing to build a case to be seen? That question is what this whole episode is built around. So let's dig into it together. Hey there, I'm your host, Cyndi Bennett, trauma-informed career coach and the founder of the Resilient Career Academy. I am also the woman who built the room she wasn't invited back into, and your go-to guide for turning being overlooked into being undeniable. I don't come into this work from theory alone. I come to it from having lived exactly what I just described to you, and from years of sitting across from my clients who tell me some version of that same story. They did the work. They stayed quiet. Someone else got the credit. Over and over, I've watched people carry the belief that this is just how it is for them. That some people are simply built to be noticed and others aren't. I don't believe that. I believe being overlooked is a pattern, not a personality trait. And patterns can change once you understand where they came from. In today's episode, we'll talk about how you build a case for the promotion you've been waiting for someone else to hand you. My mission is to make sure no one else stays quiet in a room they built, watching someone less qualified get the credit, the title, and the promotion they earned. So many talented people have been taught, often since childhood, that staying small is safer than being seen. And I'm determined to change that. This podcast exists because I know what it costs to wait for someone else to speak up for you. And I'm done watching good people wait. This work matters to me because I know I'm not the only one who's lived this. Almost every client who comes to me has some version of this story. Doing excellent work, staying quiet, and watching someone else get the credit for it. If that's you, here's something I hope you'll know. You are not imagining it, and it can change. That's what this show is about, not just telling you to speak up louder, but helping you understand why your voice disappears the moment it matters most, and giving you a real path to change that for good. Before we dive in, if being overlooked at work has you second guessing yourself, come join my free Substack community. It's where I share tools, reflections, and next step support for people who are tired of staying quiet when they have something real to say. So let's talk about what it actually takes to build a case for promotion when you've been consistently overlooked. Because here's the thing, I don't think you're missing talent, effort, or dedication. I think you're missing a strategy, and maybe even permission to use one. What I want to walk you through today comes from what I've learned both in my own career and from sitting with client after client who's lived some version of the same story. There are 3 shifts that make the biggest difference, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. Let's start with the first one. Key point number 1, recognize the pattern. Waiting is not neutral. Waiting to be noticed feels like patience, but it's actually a strategy, even if you never consciously chose it. The first step isn't working harder. It's noticing every time you've stayed quiet and hoped someone else would speak up for you instead of speaking up for yourself. Here's what this can look like in real life. Maybe you finish a huge project, and instead of mentioning it in your next one-on-one, you assume your manager already knows how much work went into it. Maybe you get asked in a meeting who led a particular initiative, and you say, "Oh, it was a team effort," even though you did the heavy lifting. Maybe you've told yourself, "I don't want to be the person who's always talking about what I did." None of that is a character flaw. It's a pattern. And patterns feel invisible until someone names them out loud. I invite you to think back over the last few months. Is there a moment where you did something you were proud of and you let it pass by without saying a word? Sit with that for a second. That's the pattern we're talking about. This is exactly the kind of pattern I help people untangle more deeply inside the Resilient Career Academy. But for now, I want to just give you the core shift first. Key point number 2, find the root cause of the freeze. That freeze or downplay response didn't come out of nowhere. Somewhere, often long before this job, you learned that being seen wasn't safe. For some people, that root goes back to a workplace where speaking up got punished, where the person who raised their hand became the target, not the leader. For others, it goes back even further to childhood. Maybe you grew up in a house where being noticed meant being criticized. Maybe standing out drew attention you didn't want. Maybe you learned early that staying small kept you safe. Here's why this matters so much. If you only address the surface behavior, just speak up more, just be more confident, you're fighting a losing battle because you're not addressing what's actually driving the freeze. It's like telling someone to stop flinching when you've been taught that flinching kept them safe. The advice isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. Understanding where that pattern started takes away the shame and replaces it with clarity. This isn't a character flaw, it's a learned response, which means it can be unlearned. And once you can see it clearly, root and all, you're no longer fighting a shadow. You're finally working with something real. Key point number 3, a case gets built. It isn't discovered. Good work doesn't advocate for itself. Building a case means documenting your wins as they happen, naming your contributions out loud, and treating your own advancement as something you actively construct, not something you passively hope for. This might look like keeping a simple running list of your accomplishments each week, even a few bullet points in a notes app. It might look like using specific language in your next one-on-one. I want to make sure this is visible. Here's what I led on this quarter. It might look like asking directly, what would it take for me to move into the next level here? Instead of hoping the question gets asked for you. None of that requires becoming a different person. It requires becoming someone who documents and speaks instead of someone who does and waits. Before we close, I want to leave you with something to sit with. Think about the last time you had a chance to speak up about your work, whether in a review, a meeting, or a conversation with your manager, and you froze, downplayed it, or let the moment pass. What did you tell yourself in that moment? And where do you think you first learned that being seen wasn't safe? You don't have to answer that today. Just let the question sit with you this week. Today we talked about what it really means to be consistently overlooked for a promotion. Being passed over does not mean that you're not capable or qualified. The next step in your career comes from moving beyond hoping your hard work speaks for itself and learning how to intentionally communicate your value, build visibility, and advocate for yourself. We named the pattern waiting to be noticed instead of building a case to be seen. We talked about why you freeze or downplay your work in the moment it matters most and where that pattern likely started. And we talked about what it actually takes to build a case for yourself, documenting your wins, naming your contributions, and treating your advancements as something you create, not something you wait for. If you recognized yourself in this episode, in the freezing, the downplaying, and the knot in your throat moment where you know what you've done but you can't seem to fully claim it, here's something I hope stays with you. You do not have to keep navigating that alone. Inside the Resilient Career Academy, we help you get underneath those patterns, strengthen your voice, and build a visibility strategy that doesn't require you to become someone you're not. This is for you if you're done being overlooked and you're ready to become undeniable in a way that feels safe, honest, and sustainable. You can join us at resilientcareers.substack.com. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Your Trauma-Wise Career Guide. I'll see you next time. You're not walking this path alone. Every step you take toward a trauma-wise career is an act of courage, and I'm here cheering you on. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with another survivor who needs to hear this message. Together, we're rewriting the rules of career success. Keep rising, keep healing, keep building.